Hi, this is Claire, and you're listening to the Film Swap podcast.
Howdy, partners. Tonight we have two major blockbusters made 70 years apart, and we're asking ourselves, what makes a great American hero? Join us on Film Swap Podcast.
Here is a motion picture film.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrill.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Film Swap. My name is David Seeley, and I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed co-host. But first, I have to feed him some beef. Beef that'll make him strong. Healthy beef that'll help him grow. The ecstatic gaucho himself. He's Mr. Jonathan Pritchard Barrett. Jonathan, how are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you, David. How are you?
I'm all right. Have you had any beef lately?
I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah.
Just beef raw, or did you eat it raw, or did you?
Well, first serving was raw. Second serving, I cooked it.
Okay, well, that's good. A bit of diversity is probably pretty good for the palate.
Yeah.
And so those of you who may be watching us on our video version, you may have noticed that there's someone else sitting in with us tonight. We have a special guest, a returning guest, actually, someone who was our very first guest on the podcast way back when. How long ago was that, Claire? It must have been like,
Yes.
what, 2.5 years ago?
Easily. I mean, it's been forever. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think,
been forever.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting a long time.
You've been waiting by the phone for me to call you again to come back. Well, we're very happy to have you back. And tonight we've got a really interesting set of films to talk about because Claire has brought something to the table that perhaps people who listen to Film Swap regularly might be surprised by. But actually, I think we're in for a really interesting discussion tonight because tonight we are talking about hawks and heroes. And the two films that we're talking about are literally 70 years apart. And they were both major, big, mega blockbusters of their day. And we're going to start with Howard Hawks, hence the Hawks from the title. But there might be a little bit of a sort of a double meaning there as well. But we're talking about the 1948 classic with John Wayne called Red River. And then we are going to move to a much more contemporary film to look at a different kind of hero and a different kind of America. And we are looking at now I think it's fair to say it's already considered a classic, but it's the animated Marvel Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And now you may think on the surface that those two films are sort of worlds apart. And in many ways they are, and we're going to talk about that. But I think you'll see the through line and the logic to it as the discussion goes along. Mm. So we're going to start with Red River tonight. And if it's okay, Jonathan, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce Howard Hawks' 1948 classic, Red River.
Red River, yeah. So Red River was made in 1948, and it stars John Wayne and Montgomery Clift. I guess John Wayne is probably the better known of the two. It's basically about a story about a rancher, and he takes a huge herd of cattle from Texas to Missouri, which is like a sort of 1,000 miles or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's taking something like 10,000 cattle for 1,000 miles. It's just that this is basically in the very early days of railroads. So there weren't trains everywhere. So in order to get to the nearest railway, they had to travel for a very, very long distance. And so that is the story, the basic outline. But essentially, the John Wayne is this sort of tough, grizzled old rancher, and he's got his young adopted son, who's Montgomery Clift, who's going to sort of take over. But they have different ideas, essentially, about how journey should be handled. The Chisholm Trail, which is a true, real trail, and people did drive
this
for
is
about.
based on a real story, isn't it? Like of the very first major cattle drive
Yeah,
across America with these big, giant, huge herds of beef.
yes, and I think for about 20 years until the trains were built in Texas, they used to do these mad journeys. Yeah, so it's a terrific movie. I hadn't seen it before. Directed by Howard Hawks, one of the greats, and yes, that's my rough outline.
And this film, this is actually our second Howard Hawks film. We talked about the original Scarface back
Yes.
a while back on our Gangster Greats episode.
That's true.
And so this is the second time Mr. Hawks has made an appearance. But he's made, gosh, let's see off the top of my head, and with a little help from Wikipedia, I'm going to list you just some of the films that this man made. Okay, so we've already mentioned Scarface, Bringing Up Baby, Only Angels Have Wings, His Girl Friday, To Have and Have Not, The Big Sleep, Red River, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Rio Bravo, which the name may ring a bell with you two, because it was one that we considered talking about tonight, but we've gone with Red River instead. So this is a man who was no slouch behind the camera, made many, many a classic film. And this one is particularly interesting because not only does it take us on a journey across the United States, and just after the Civil War, I think it's set, but it's also a little bit about a journey of a man who's a man in charge, our hero, if you will, and somebody who has a very single set mind on what he wants to accomplish. And he doesn't take any guff, does he?
No.
He's quite single-minded, and he's tough, and he's uncompromising.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hand it over to our guest now to talk a little bit about her observations about John Wayne's character.
Well, I have to be
film.
honest, but I'd not watched this film before. This was the first time for me. And I must admit, when I started watching it, it took me a long time to realise why you'd asked me to watch it for a concept of hero. Because John Wayne is not a convincing hero for a really long time. His mission is a selfish one. He wants a ranch, right? He wants to set his own life up, but he's not trying to save anyone. And he has even the relationship he has with his girlfriend to be wife that he leaves behind, that's almost quite, he doesn't seem to feel that as strongly as one might like from a hero. He's quite, and he's when he clashes with his adoptive son, it's really interesting. The vision of the world that he's trying to create isn't necessarily the one that the world deserves. I think he's an interesting character. I don't know. Convince me he's a hero.
Well, I think it's all about the timing, if you think about it. Because, and just to clarify too about that woman that he leaves behind, I reckon he dodged a bullet, because she's like the single most intense person I've ever met.
She's so intense.
She's like literally going, Tom, you gotta take me with you. Tom, I'm a strong woman. You're going to need a strong woman where you're going.
Well,
Tom,
she had a point.
Feel my back. I'm so strong, Tom.
Didn't you get the impression that the director said to her, look, we can give you a job, but you've got 4 lines and that's it? And she's like, I'm going to make these count.
Yeah, gosh, she just sort of was like super, like, it's like John. I think John Wayne made a good decision about leaving her behind.
Well,
frankly,
it did
because
rather worry me when she said she was she felt like she had knives in her knees. I'm not sure what that meant, whether that was some kind of like 1840s or 1940s euphemism for love. I don't know. It's a bit dark.
possibly, I guess just that maybe it made her feel uncomfortable, her
Mm,
longing for Mr. Wayne.
yeah.
But who knows? Um, but anyway, to go back to your question about the hero, because
Mm,
if we put this film into context, which you kind of have to do when you're watching old films, really, you
mm,
have to sort of think about a little bit about the time and the place. So we have a film, 1948. This is just a few years after the Second World War is over. And
mhm,
we have a time when America was on the ascendancy. And
mm,
we have this idea that's presented in a lot of these Western films, this kind of mythical idea of the West is this great big huge open expanse that needs to be conquered and
mhm,
needs to be tamed by, and it takes a hard strong man with the will to succeed to go and take what he wants and go and get it. And I think that kind of concept of a man is very much part of the time of the American psyche, isn't it?
It is, but don't you think, like, I totally take your point that he was trying to conquer the landscape, but I didn't really get the man struggle against the landscape. It was the man against other men. Like,
Yeah, well,
it was
that's
a,
how it ends up. Because I think the
yeah.
film takes you on and him on that journey because we see someone who's so single minded and so determined that along the way he loses sight of his own community and
Mm,
and the people who are there to support him and
mm,
who have bought into his vision. But along the way, he's so driven, so single-minded, and resorts to violence and sort of fear mongering and all those things in order to keep them in line and keep them behind him. That eventually it kind of backfires on him.
yeah.
And I think that's what makes this film so interesting is because he really does go on that journey. But we could, of course, discuss the ending and about how they resolve that.
Mm.
But Montgomery Clift, I think, ultimately becomes the real hero, the real
Yeah.
protagonist of the film,
Oh,
doesn't
I'm
he?
glad you thought
Because I,
that, because yeah, like,
well,
yeah.
I know, Claire, we exchanged a couple texts while you were watching it, and I know you were quite taken with Montgomery Clift. I'm surprised you weren't because he was quite a big film star in his day,
Yeah.
sort of in the late 40s and 50s. He was a major star, but
Mm,
unfortunately, he ultimately had some personal problems and some health problems, and his career
mm.
sort of declined into the 60s. But he was a really great actor, a
He
really, really
was,
great
yeah.
talent, and you're seeing him here, right? This is kind of like his first major role,
Yeah.
and he's quite pivotal because he really becomes the hero of the
He
piece because
totally is.
he's the one who stands up
Mm.
to this authority figure who sort of kind of starts to lose the plot
Yeah,
along
exactly.
the
He
way.
really does. And if the American hero is John Wayne, then we've got problems. We're waiting for a Montgomery Clift to come along and sort it all out, because yeah, he ends up with the girl, doesn't he? He ends up with the life and the ranch and everything else, and he's
He does.
what John Wayne in theory wanted at the beginning, and then just went a bit wrong.
It did indeed.
Went
Although,
a
I
bit
mean, to
wrong.
be fair, in the end, in a sense, they resolve their differences, I guess, and become partners again. So, in a strange sort of way, they've sort of the authority and the patriarchy, if you will, gets restored at the end
Mm,
because they basically have a little tuffle and smash each other in the face a couple times,
that's what,
which sort of,
I
I
mean,
guess, is their idea of conflict resolution.
Go and rest.
In the Wild West, that's how they gave each other a good smacking around, and then they sat down and said, "All right, back to business."
I wonder
And
if
that's kind of what it's like.
But there is another. Well, in according to the Wikipedia, there is a different ending where basically the John Wayne's character gets
mm,
shot dead by the younger one,
I,
which is
I thought
my
it would go that direction. I found it weird that it felt a bit like it didn't quite resolve itself for me. I needed the
Yeah,
real hero to really push on through. So
I
I'm
think
glad.
that is the authentic ending, but for commercial reasons, they couldn't have John Wayne get shot.
Is it that
Yeah.
simple?
Th-
Because
Yeah, this was at a time when John Wayne was probably, one of the biggest, if not the biggest film star in the
Mm.
world, and you don't kill him off.
even
Although
when he,
years later he did get shot in a film quite famously. Was it Bruce Dern or Dennis Hopper? I can't remember. One of the two gets to be the first person to kill John Wayne on
Oh, really?
screen. I can't remember what film
really,
Wow.
it is,
I
though.
didn't know that.
Off the
Counterculture
top of my head.
shoots the old man.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, amazing.
yeah.
Well,
But yeah, in this film there was none of that. John Wayne, he gets winged, doesn't he? But he doesn't die.
Isn't it?
Um,
Is it John Wayne that gets winged, or isn't it? Isn't it Nat that gets winged?
no, it was
And
John
doesn't he
Wayne.
get shot on
Well,
the
actually, this
leg?
brings up another little bit of interesting kind of trivial or sort of cinephilia, sort of interesting side note is that there's actually two versions of this film. And I'm not sure because I know Claire, you watched this on Amazon.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and Jonathan, I'm assuming you probably did something the same. You probably watched it on a
I did,
streaming.
yes. It was
Yeah.
adverts.
So I'm not sure which version would be that it is that you watched. But what happened was, I think at some point, I think it was in the 80s, they
Yeah.
discovered a preview, what they would call a preview version of the film, which would be a version that they showed in advance to audiences in order to get their reactions,
Oh, yeah.
and so that they could then decide how to cut the film and fine tune it so that
Right.
it would have more uh, chance in the marketplace. I guess is the concept behind it.
Right.
So they found this preview version, which is slightly longer, and they call it the book version because it actually, rather than have a narration, it actually shows pages of a book with some text in it to give you some exposition about the story, about what's going on.
Oh,
So that version became the kind of the de facto of kind of version that was available to people for television and home video and stuff for years and years and years. And then it was only just fairly recently that Criterion did a restoration of the original wide release cinema version and released it on video. So I'm not sure which version you would have watched. Did it have narration over it, or did it have
no.
no?
No, I don't think
So
it did.
so then it would be what they call the book version, which is the
Mm.
longer cut of the film.
It was long.
It
Yeah.
was really long. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've done my time. Yeah, no, it was really long.
It's interesting that you'd say that because this film is actually only it's not much longer than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
But to be fair, I mean, sort of stylistically, the films are very, very diametrically opposed, aren't they? I
Mm,
mean, Red River is obviously the pacing. Older films tend to be
mm,
paced a bit more deliberate, and they take a bit of time to develop characters and
mm,
Yeah.
sort of tell the story in a more in that kind of pace that people were used to at the time. Whereas nowadays films are just really rapidly cut and are constantly moving, and they don't spend a
mm,
lot of time like sort of like developing characters and all that kind of thing. So a lot of times when you watch older films, if you don't see a lot of them or you're not used to them, they might come across as being a bit slow and a bit sort of
So one of the reasons I asked you to watch the Spider-Man film was because um, in the same anticipating you'd say that about older films and about the beauty and the time spent in them. The Spider-Man film, every shot was hand drawn. Like it's
yeah,
famous for being beautifully put together, and these
Really?
films takes years to produce
yeah.
a single. Because I think the Spider-Man is the first of a trilogy, and the third's not out yet, because it takes years to draw
Yeah.
to draw every single. And if you freeze frame, there's no movement. You could freeze any frame in that film, and it would be a standalone picture, effectively.
It is absolutely
Quite an
beautiful,
incredible,
stunningly beautiful.
it is
And
beautiful.
again, stylistically, I think it's totally different. Like the whole sort of, I think the way that it's telling the story is just completely different. And we'll talk about that obviously more in depth in the second half because we're going to talk about Spider-Man. But so because I quite think this is quite interesting because you said you'd never seen the film before, and you reckon that it took you a little while to sort of get into the rhythm of it, or
It did, yeah. Because I mean, it's a slow, it's a black and white film, and you don't, the contrast between the colours or the lack of colours is difficult to get into of an evening when you're tired. So it did take a while. Sorry, there's a creak. Can you hear the creak?
I'm
My
creaking all
dog's
the time.
yeah,
So.
don't
sorry.
worry, we creak, we all have
My
creak.
dog, I think, is pushing in. So no,
Most
sorry
of the
about that.
creaks on my end are actually like my shoulders and my joints and things.
Exactly, exactly. It's it did take a while to get into it, and it took a while to spot the difference between all the different characters because they all look quite the same in the shadows. There was a lot of nighttime scenes. It's hard to see what was going on. But generally speaking, I just thought it was really interesting that for a very long time, clearly John Wayne was the hero, right? So for a very long time, the American film industry thought that was what a hero looked like. That's what a man looks like. That's what he does come to terms with Matt in the end, and they go through their troubles, and they do reach that kind of understanding at the end, and that's fine. But in the meantime, that man who's willing to whip another for making a mistake, the man who's willing to forget his woman and move on, the man who's driven by his own his ranchstead, his homestead, and setting that up, that's the most important thing, and that's what constitutes a hero. And I imagine it was a very long time until that started to get unpicked a bit, which is why I thought Spider-Man was interesting, because that's a very different hero.
Well, I don't really see. I mean, it's a funny thing. Well, John Wayne's a strange character, isn't he, as an actor? Because when you said you found him difficult, I was thinking, yeah, I sort of completely agree, and I'd never really got him either.
No.
And I think, partly he doesn't have a sense of humour.
No,
I don't think has he ever cracked a joke in any of his films?
No, I don't know
well,
what
he has
Fen saw
actually.
in it.
There are. If you go to his earlier, I think I mentioned once on a previous one because we were talking about John Wayne once before. I think when we talked about Tie Yellow Ribbon. You remember? The thing is, John Wayne, before he kind of settled in to the Western and
Right.
the action hero persona that he eventually kind of settled into,
Yeah.
he sort of flitted around doing all sorts of things. And I remember once seeing some sort of like it was from the 30s, and it was like a rom-com basically with John Wayne. He was
What?
just a young guy, yeah, and he was
No.
just a young guy, and it was kind of like a screwball romantic comedy with him trying to woo a girl.
Shall we
And
assume that was off camera? Because I don't know what Fen saw in him in the early part of Red River. I couldn't see that at all.
well,
I don't know what he was bringing to the
Well,
table.
yeah. I mean, to me, he's. I'm not a John Wayne authority by any means, but the films I have seen with him, he's never particularly charismatic. He's this sort of always extremely stubborn, sort of, and he never, as I said, he just never cracks a joke. Takes himself incredibly seriously, and I find him rather tedious. Anyway, I'm sorry.
well, no, not at all, because that's the whole kind of, I think, the crux of kind of the theme of tonight's show. Because
That is. But
if you look at two films made 70 years apart, both American films, both kind of major blockbusters of their day.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is how the concept and the idea of a hero has changed fundamentally.
I don't think he is a hero in this, because the way I was. Oh, what's his son? His son
said, but how much of that is our contemporary retrospective looking at it
I don't
as
think so.
opposed to thinking about it in the context. Because I was the same way. For me in the film Montgomery Clift, it
Oh,
becomes the hero of the film, isn't he? He's
he
the
is.
one who stands up to authority. He's the one who fights back against a tyrant, stands up to a tyrant, takes the people and leads them to a success instead of the kind of the single-minded determination of one man who was
Yeah,
ultimately going
Do
to
you,
lead
do
them
you
to
think that
ruin.
John
that's.
Wayne thought he was playing the hero?
I think it's more complicated.
Yeah, and I think Howard Hawks probably meant the film to be more complicated because I think
Hmm.
John Wayne's character does go through an arc where he is a certain type of person, or at least maybe he doesn't realize. I think he probably thinks he's doing the right thing, but his kind of single mindedness, he loses sight of the other people in his orbit, and it ends up going wrong for him. And so the idea is that the film takes him on that journey so that hopefully, and to me, it's more ambiguous,
Mm,
the ending, in terms of how much he's actually grown or accepted that
mm,
perhaps he lost the plot along the way.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure that he, at the end of the film, that he really has learnt
no, I think he'd do
anything,
it all
or
again.
yeah,
He'd do it all
or
again
not.
tomorrow.
It's just
Yeah.
difficult to say.
Mm,
Um, but I guess that this is what I find interesting about it, because in 1948, did people see him as the hero? Did they, because it's all tied up. I find that one scene really interesting when he shows up at this plot of land, and he sort of decides, okay, this is where we're going to set up shop.
mm,
And then he just kind of draws his gun on somebody and says, look, from now on, everything north of this river
mm,
is mine.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's
mm,
going to be. This is mine now, and I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And there is that kind of mindset that even the European settlers had when they came over from Europe and went to North America, is this idea that this is just a big untamed wilderness,
mm.
and
Up for
we're
grabs.
just going to have it, and we're going to make something of it. And that was their kind of their mindset, and what they used to call manifest destiny, right? This idea
Mm,
that white people were destined to go all around the world spreading democracy and civilization all over the world, and settle these places and make them ours and make them into something. But of
But
course, they completely miss the point that, well, there's already people there, and that maybe some other people might have some other ideas, and that maybe all the stuff that you're doing maybe isn't necessarily positive, because it's always kind of commercially driven. It's all about, I'm going to rear up a bunch of cattle and sell some beef,
mm,
or somebody's going to build a railway and make lots of money transporting things around. But that in and of itself, they see as their great mission and their great sort of, that's kind of the American way, isn't it? To sort
mm.
of, let's go, there's nothing here, let's go make it into something so we can make some money.
And
well,
certainly this film, like where the Indians, where there are Indians, they're sort of on a distance, aren't they? They just do some
Yeah,
random
yeah, it's
attacking and they
not.
go
and
on.
they're
It's
hostile, they're
not
belligerent,
so.
right?
Yeah, but John Wayne is never really. He's never really against the Indians. He's more against the other people, the other white people he might
His
see.
own men.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I
exactly.
thought it was interesting that there is actually an Indian character amongst their group.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
although he's not necessarily like 100% portrayed positively, because he's kind of like meant as a sort of a comic
mm,
sort of character, like a comic relief character,
mm.
he is welcome amongst the group of men and he works with them. So I thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
thing.
But
Um,
the two things that made this film made me think of. One thing I wrote down is it's like the mutiny on the Bounty,
mm,
um,
yeah, yeah,
and because basically uh, John Wayne's character is like a sort of Captain Bligh.
Mm,
mm,
He's sort of doggedly trying to pursue his own ends, and the rest of them could all hang. And funnily enough, when I looked at the Roger Ebert review, he mentioned Mutiny on the Bounty as well.
Yeah,
They
it's a
have that
good
sort of
comparison, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think that sort of that the young man, is seen as a positive thing, and I think that he's definitely if he is a hero, he's a very flawed hero, the John Wayne character. And the other thing that when I was watching it, because I'd heard the name, I have to say, I think I've seen Razor's Edge, which has Montgomery Clift in it, and but I'm not really very much aware of his work. But when I was watching, I was thinking, wait a second, this is basically he's like what's his name, Rebel Without a Cause, old
James Dean. Yeah, he's kind of very much the same generation in that same sort of.
He was 5 years before. This was sort of, or 3 years before,
Yeah.
I think, 2 or 3, or maybe 4 years before Rebel Without a Cause. But this is, I didn't realize, because I thought Rebel Without a Cause and Marlon Brando and that lot had sort of happened in the 50s.
Yeah.
Basically, they got the 40s out of their system. Now it's the 50s, but actually, that whole rebellion started. Well, it started here in 1948, at least. So it was part of that sort of youthquake rebellion type thing, and really interesting, I thought.
I think I completely agree with you with the way that the young man emerges at the end as the future. He's the one who's going to have the family with Tess, and he's the one who's going to make the ranch work. But also there was so many kind of conservative, kind of Christian like flows through it as well. I don't know if you noticed, but the music kept picking up. I don't know who wrote the music for it, but I kept hearing like "Give me oil in my lamp, keep it burning." Those kind of that music kind of that was a riff it kept playing on when the cattle train's moving. So it was definitely
a lot of
dragging
little
it back to that
motifs and references
motifs there.
throughout
Yeah, exactly. It's dragging it back to a very conservative time of what constitutes manhood and what constitutes, the right thing to. It's worth the killing. It's worth this to get your homestead. To go, this is all worth it for that. The John Wayne's character, Thomas. Did I miss his backstory? Like, what was his back apart from the girl?
There
Like,
wasn't
was he
really a
supposed to be?
backstory.
Was he? Because I wasn't sure if he was supposed to have been part of the Civil War. Because we're talking about 1850-ish.
Oh yeah, there was definitely references to the Civil War that they all fought in the Civil War, and now they wanted to go and have a
nice settled life.
leave all that behind and start a new life, a new beginning.
I didn't
so
get any
there's that
sense
element in it as well.
So
lots
a
of
bit
them
like
had.
after the Second World War, you're kind of returning home. You want to build your home, get your work.
Lots of these guys had their army uniforms on, their sort of army trousers on. You can see the sort of stripes down the side, which is quite sort of interesting.
I don't know if Thomas was supposed to have been like I don't know where he was in the army. I didn't get a handle on his wartime experience in the Civil War. Had he been doing it as a leader, as a marshaller of men? Was he expecting men to just sort of fall in behind him?
Yeah, they don't really mention his role as I got the feeling that he just carried on farming whilst the war was the raging, wherever it was raging.
It's all about the cattle.
Yeah,
but a lot of these guys would have come looking for jobs after they were done fighting. They all would have needed somewhere to go and something to do to start building a life. So they would have gravitated towards these, these large farms and these cattle barons and things for employment. And but I think it's quite interesting film. It has a lot of complexity, as you mentioned, because the hero. I mean, is he the hero? I guess that is the question that we want to ask.
I love the idea. I love your idea that this is the start of the kind of rebel without a cause movement, where the young man actually steps up and becomes the future. Like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's not meant to be a sort of good guy necessarily, and your misgivings at the beginning are very much the misgivings of the audience. I would imagine certainly the filmmakers too. That's my feeling of it. And yeah, and it does have this connection that we're going to see in the next film, which has the young and the old generations sparring against each other.
Yes.
I will just say, actually, because obviously when you said to me, watch this film, and I'd never heard of it. Oh God, I'm a terrible film watcher. I'd never heard of it. I Rotten Tomatoed it, and it had 100%.
100% on this film. Wow.
Rotten Tomatoes. Amazing, right?
Well, this is interesting because I mean, Claire, is it fair to say you're not like a big cinema buff, are you?
No.
Is that a reasonable sort of
No,
appraisal?
I still think Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is the best film of all time.
Oh, right.
That's pretty much
Brilliant.
There's a hero. I should have given you that one.
Incidentally, the chap who did the music is a guy called Dmitry Tyomkin, who was actually Russian or born in Russia, and but he was born in the Russian Empire in the 1890s and died in 1979.
Wow.
What a crazy life! And somehow, I was educated at the St. Petersburg Conservatory, and then ended up writing sort of music for Frank Capra and High Noon, and especially for westerns. An absolutely extraordinary story. So yeah, so I guess he was a highly knowledgeable guy, and that's why he included those elements of hymns and whatnot as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
like it. No, I enjoyed watching it. It took me out of my comfort zone. That's
Yeah, one of the things I read, it said that they did consider making it in colour, and then I think old Howard Hawks slightly regretted it that he hadn't, because I guess it was sort of early colour. And when I was watching, I was thinking, really wish they had used colour, because it just made it a little bit easier for my sort of milli-livered taste.
I do find that though. Like, do you think and again, this is just because I guess obviously I watch a lot more old films, maybe Claire than you do, and maybe even than Jonathan does. I don't know, but do you find that maybe just because you're used to watching things in color,
I mean,
that you find it more difficult to get to acclimatize yourself?
So once I am acclimatized, I don't see the difference. Like 10 minutes in, as long as the characters are gripping, I wouldn't know if it's color or black and white. But I agree that I think it's really sad that this particular film wasn't in color, just because the landscapes are so integral to the importance of the plot, to the importance of understanding the characters, to that you've got to get behind this vision of the ranch being all, and that's the whole point. And so you've got to really see the beauty of the landscape. And in black and white, you just don't. I'm sorry, but you don't. Like, if only that had been sweeping panorama color, that would have been. Then now I see. It's worth it. Yeah, no, it's just totally worth it. That might have helped.
The other one, because I watched Rio Grande as well recently, and that was another Western, which is black and white with John Wayne. But I found it the black and white didn't bother me in the same way at all. In fact, it worked much better. With this one, I felt like it was calling out for color, whereas Rio Grande somehow it was just, perhaps maybe there was more in the daytime. This one was more at night. It was just darker.
Yeah,
I was just having trouble sort of seeing things. But there's so that's.
And this is never going to get me back for a third run. But that early character, the man he starts out on the journey with, it took me so long to realise that Nadine was a man. His name's Nadine, right?
Was that Walter Brennan? Was that?
Walter Brennan. Yeah, Nadine.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I was just going, "There's obviously a woman in the shadows." How come she got to go and the other one didn't?
That's brilliant.
Well, that's interesting.
So
That's
there you go. So
interesting.
sorry, yeah, no, I'm
Of
getting
course, no,
back.
Claire, you'll be welcome back anytime you want to come back and talk.
to talk
I'll
about
I'll
Robin
keep
Hood.
trying to get you to watch films outside your comfort zone now, because
It's
this
just,
I find this really interesting. Like, I find that because I have conversations with people like that all the time. They really, like, they would not even consider. I once had a conversation with a guy that I worked with who literally said he would never even consider watching something in black and white. Like, he
What?
just, like, absolutely, the
dark.
shutters were completely down, and he just would not even entertain the concept of watching something
Oh,
that was black and white. And I just kind of find that kind of baffling, because I know some people too don't like subtitles, or they won't watch foreign films, or they don't, and I always find that kind of thing really fascinating about um,
it's
that it
a
is a
shame.
real sort of barrier for people sometimes to be able to enjoy something,
Mm.
because they just see it as that it's old, or that it's somehow inferior because of some perception that
Mm.
there's a problem there. And I just think that's an interesting sort of phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah. It is weird. It is weird.
But anyway, but anyway, so I guess, just in the interest of time, I'm thinking we might need to move on. But was there any last sort of parting thoughts that you may have had about Red River?
One last thought is I'd look out more Montgomery Clift films, less likely to sort of think, right, I've got to watch all the John Wayne films.
Yeah, I'd have
Well,
to
yeah,
agree.
definitely. He's
He was
so
my
let me just get a little list of things. Oh, he's so handsome. He's such a handsome man. He was. Um, uh, Red River, A Place in the Sun with Elizabeth Taylor. From Here to Eternity, he was in. Judgment at Nuremberg, The Misfits. Um, there you go.
I've
That's just
heard of
off the
From
top
Here
of his
to Eternity.
Wikipedia page. Like, the man, and he was a terrific actor, a real talent, and definitely worth. And I recently watched something he did much later in his career, towards the end. He was in a John Huston film about the life of Sigmund Freud.
Oh, really?
So that's quite an interesting film as well.
Wow,
That is
Um,
interesting.
that's
yeah,
that's unexpected. And he, like Mark Hamill, had an awful motorbike accident, didn't he?
he did. Yeah, that was. I was trying to think of what happened, because he had some health problems later on, but he did. He had a terrible accident that he ended up having to have a lot of plastic surgery and things.
Yeah,
And then I think he did succumb. Hopefully, I'm not getting this wrong, but I think he succumbed a bit to alcoholism and
right.
painkillers and things like that,
Mm.
Yeah,
which kind of spoiled his career
yeah.
towards the end a little bit. Um, but he was a really great talent. And I know Claire mentioned that when she was watching it, she spotted him straight away,
Yeah.
young in his prime, in a cowboy outfit,
Right.
riding horseback, and she was a bit taken by
Well,
him. So
do you
that
know
was
what? It
funny.
was just nice to spot someone that I recognised as being a different character.
Hmm.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
the early doors, a lot just drifted in and out.
Yeah.
The black and white of the dark in the. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Montgomery Clift's character in this, I think he makes an interesting segue, an interesting transition to Miles Morales, who
Mm.
is a character
Yes.
that we're going to talk about in our next film. So, listeners, we're going to take just a very, 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 very tiny short break, one that you'll hardly even notice. So keep your ears peeled, because we're gonna take a little break. We're gonna refresh our beverages, and you'll notice I've got my Marvel Comics mug
Ah,
today,
right.
and I'm also wearing my Amazing
Oh,
Spider-Man
wow.
T-shirt in honor of the fact that, yes, we are indeed talking about a Marvel Comics film tonight, and I'm looking forward to digging in and diving into this one, because I think it's terrific.
Well,
So after the break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Hey film nerds, Film Swap is now on Letterboxd. It's where you'll find capsule reviews for every film we've covered on the show, plus themed lists based on each of our episodes, and our essential cinema list featuring the films we think are absolute must-sees. You can explore the themes and dive deeper and even drop your own swaps and suggestions in the comments. Got a perfect pick for one of our themes? Tell us. Follow Film Swap on Letterboxd, hit us with your hot takes and submit your swaps. It's like Criterion Closet, except only more chaotic. Just look for Film Swap Podcast on Letterboxd or use this handy-dandy QR code. There's also a link in the comments. Hidden gems, forgotten classics. Follow Film Swap on Letterboxd and let's get nerdy.
And we're back. Welcome back, listeners. And welcome back, Jonathan, and our special guest, Clare Clark, who's joined us tonight to talk about heroes. And Clare, we didn't really say, but you're a bit of a kind of a local hero, aren't you, really? We were talking about a great
Stop blindsiding me. We're here to talk about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So that's
no, please. No, their hairstyles are just a little bit too fancy for me. But no, I was going to mention about the hit because a couple of years ago, did you not help organize a local sort of historical sort of festival?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I had a local history day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all immersive history. It was awesome, actually.
It was brilliant. You had like sort of battle reenactments.
Yeah, we had Romans. It was a proper mishmash. Like there'd been a hole in the time-space continuum. We had Second World War soldiers, First World War soldiers, gladiators.
Wow.
Like Bronze Age, I think, were there, Stone Age. It was just, it was completely insane, but it was awesome. Yeah, it was really fun.
It was brilliant. I have one of my favorite photographs from that event because you had these there were these big guys who were reenacting sort of medieval battles or whatever. And there's this one really big muscle-bound guy in a gladiator outfit with a shield.
Ooh.
And then I got a picture of my youngest son, Connor, standing in front of him like this, like he's going to pick a fight with him.
Yeah.
And I love that photo, actually. But yeah, that was we had a terrific day out with that. And Claire, you mentioned, because we were actually going to record a couple of weeks ago, but you had a deadline for a new book. Is that something that you can tell us a little bit about?
It's a legal book. It's not particularly exciting.
You're writing a legal book?
Yeah.
Well, that could be exciting. It was a book. It's a book on law, so it won't be something that you'll be rushing to put on your bookshelves. You never know. There might be some listeners out there who might find your writing useful. But you have written an actual sort of fictional novel.
Yeah, more fun.
It was indeed. It is a lot of fun. Yeah. What's it called? The Slipped Knot, isn't it?
The Sealed Knot.
The Sealed Knot. Sorry, I apologize. It's been a couple of years since I read it now.
Obviously, it's not by your pillow. So weird. It's about the English Civil War and the interregnum afterwards. It's the period I'm
fascinated. Well, that's terrific. Well, whenever we have guests on, we want them to plug their stuff and tell them a bit about what's going on. So that's good. Is there going to be like a follow-up to that? Or
yeah, there will be. And there might well be. Now I can stop watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse because I've had to spend quite a lot of hours being freeze-framed while my 14-year-old explains to me exactly what's happening and who's doing what.
He's a big fan, your son, isn't he?
Favorite film in the world. And to be fair, it's catching. The enthusiasm is catching. It's an incredible movie. And you've watched it. Did you enjoy it?
I love it. Look, I'll say out front. I mean, I'll admit that when you first mooted the idea of talking about a Spider-Man film, I did say to Jonathan, I don't know about this because, it's kind of, we're supposed to be hidden gems and forgotten classics. And this is kind of pretty mainstream, kind of major contemporary hit film. And I'm not sure if it falls in the remit. But then we talked about it. And after I thought about it a little bit about, because we always end up picking films and then finding a way to bring out some commonalities or some interesting ways to bring the films together and find a theme that usually develops quite naturally, even when the films might seem quite different. And it's no different this time because tonight, I think this is it's a brilliant film, both visually and I think just as a film in general, as a story. And when I was a youth, I used to collect comic books, and I was a huge Marvel Comics fan. But back in my day, it was considered very nerdy and niche, and everyone used to sort of tease me and stuff about it. So I find it quite interesting that now, all these years later, that kind of Marvel Comics has now become this huge, massive popular culture sort of mega billion-dollar
Juggernaut.
movie. Yeah, just huge thing, and everybody just loves all these Marvel characters. But when I was sort of 10 years old and reading comics and stuff, it was really sort of like a very kind of niche and sort of nerdy thing to be doing. So I just love Spider-Man. He was always my favorite character. And I love this film because I think, along with the kind of the second kind of Tobey Maguire film, I think they're the best ones in terms of just really capturing the essence of Spider-Man as a character, as the ideas and the kind of principle, if you will, the concept of of the character. And I think this film is just brilliant.
So, sorry,
Sorry,
go.
go ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting you said all that. I must admit I'm ambivalent to superhero movies generally, but
Yeah.
I think this one's interesting, and it was an interesting counterpoint to the other one because it's a lone hero again, or is it?
Mm,
What exactly is he trying to do? He's trying to have a safe home. His city, his New York, is got to be home for his family, and it's got to be safe, and the future is got to be all protected. And it had a near 100% on Rotten Tomatoes as well. So I wondered if we could explore whether the concept of hero had changed over time. And actually, our discussion just now about the last film maybe put that more rooted in the time it was created, and maybe we can't draw a very close line between that and where we are now with Spider-Man. But I don't know.
well,
Have
I
we?
think maybe that's what makes it interesting because over the 70-year period between the two films, has our concept, as our conception of a hero, what makes a hero, changed?
Hmm.
Because it obviously has. And I think what are the key differences that we can look at if we look at John Wayne's character in Red River, and if we look at Spider-Man, and in particular this iteration of Spider-Man,
Hmm.
which is the Miles Morales Spider-Man, who's a young, because the concept of Spider-Man doesn't change between the different versions, and the fact that it's somebody who has this great power foisted upon them,
And a
and
great
they're riddled.
responsibility.
Yeah, and they're riddled with self doubt.
Hmm.
So their power doesn't come from their own sort of determination and their own sort of feeling of, I'm going to do this, and this is, I'm right, and I'm going to make everyone go along with me. Because actually, in the Spider-Man films and stories, it's the villains who have that
Hmm.
attitude.
Isn't it?
But
It's a literal flip. It's a literal
it is
flip.
a literal flip. And what's interesting about Miles Morales, he's someone he's riddled with self-doubt. He's someone who doesn't feel like he's up to the task of
Hmm.
being a hero and finds himself still compelled to be a hero and to do the right thing, which is the core principle of Spider-Man. Because that's what always struck me about the stories, is that even often to his own detriment, Spider-Man will always put himself forward to help people and do the right thing, even to his own detriment. Whereas John Wayne's character is the opposite, that everything he's doing is really ultimately for his own sort of selfish desire to accomplish his own self-proclaimed
And you're right.
duty.
From the moment John Wayne arrives on scene, he knows exactly who he is, he knows exactly who he wants, and woe betide anyone who gets in his way. Whereas there's a development to Miles Morales that ends with him, that acknowledgement of with great power comes great responsibility, just comes back again and again and again. And it takes almost the entire film for Miles Morales to become the hero who is going to have some responsibility and who's going to step up. And he really wants to,
Yeah.
but not for himself, but for his friends and for his city.
Yes, and for his community, right? And that is the key difference. And it's also about finding the inner strength and the to be able to do that. But another key thing about this film too is that he actively looks for support from others.
Yeah.
Whether he struggles a little bit in his relationship with his father, which is where you get that generation gap, but he finds himself in these situations with these other Spider-Men or women who come from these other dimensions, but they gel together as a community and they support each other, and they all and they're diverse, right? There's a Japanese girl, and there's a an older middle-aged man, and there's and then there's the young Miles Morales, and and there's that diversity in that community. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
pig. There's even one of them's a pig. So there's like this. They're a diverse community with different identities personally, but they all come together and support each other and work together for a common purpose. And the purpose is not to use violence to make people submit to their will,
See,
but quite the opposite.
that's really interesting. So Spider-Man isn't violent. He
No,
isn't violent
no,
at
not
all.
at all.
None of
The
them are.
only violence, it's always self-defense, and
Yeah.
he always avoids killing. He never kills people.
He
That's
doesn't
one of the
carry a
key.
weapon.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, he has kind of tools, but he doesn't have weapons.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that really bothered me about the very first Spider-Man film, the first Tobey Maguire one, because the scene where he confronts the thief who shoots his uncle, he actually kills him. And that really sat really badly with me, because I was like, Spider-Man doesn't kill people. He just doesn't do that, right? And there maybe are some key
John
moments,
Wayne kills
story arcs where people die as a consequence of things that are going on around him,
him.
but Spider-Man does not kill people. He never uses violence gratuitously or in anger or um, to just to put over his will on other people, which he could easily do because he has that power that he could do that, but he chooses to use that power in order to help those people who are in danger or in trouble, or to stop people who are, you know,
I mean,
trying
as
to.
a hero, he's quite reactionary, isn't he? He reacts to the danger around him as opposed to go out there and manifestly creating his destiny in a John Wayne style.
Yes.
And what I loved about it is it's really funny. Like
Yeah.
their world is a human one. Like for all of the craziness, the humor is very. It brings it home.
Well, yeah, that was the great innovation that Marvel originally brought into the comic books, was the idea of taking basically ordinary people with real problems, but then putting onto them this added dimension of then segregating them out from their community because they have these special gifts or these special powers. And how do they negotiate that in the real world? And that very much, this film is beautiful with that, where we just have this young kid who's struggling with trying to work out where he fits in. He's gone into this new school, he's got all these problems and issues, personal issues that he's struggling with, and then on top of that, he suddenly finds himself that he becomes a Spider-Man.
But I love the fact that one of his issues isn't a broken home or anything like that. He's like his parents love him and they're very present. And
Mm.
he's from there are none of the usual tropes around, my parents died when I was an infant and I found my hero path independent. That it was quite. He's from a loving home. It's all very. His parents want the best for him. He's been sent to a very nice school because they want him to succeed.
Mm.
And he's not fitting in because he's a teen, and teens don't fit in because they're all really awkward. And then, and his biggest concern is, can he get the pretty girl to talk to him?
Mm.
And it turns out she's a Spider-Man as well, or a Spider Lady. I don't know how do they say it? Spider Woman.
Yeah, she called herself Spider Woman.
Lady.
Yeah, but it's difficult to know sometimes how
You
to
want to
say
get that
things.
right, right?
Jonathan and I struggled in the last episode because we talked about a couple of films that had very strong sort of sensual, earthy women as central characters. And I don't know about you, Jonathan, but I really constantly was worried I was going to say something inappropriate.
Yes.
All the time.
What did you call them?
Because I didn't want to come across as being this sort of kind of misogynist kind of person or whatever, which hopefully I don't think I am, but I was very conscious of how I spoke about the ladies in the film. So anyway, Jonathan, you've been quite quiet so far. Tell us about was this the first time you've seen the Spider-Man film? Or?
I have seen a Spider-Man one or two Spider-Man films before. Definitely the first time I'd seen this one. Though I do remember reading a review of it, and it was very positive, and it seemed very odd, but I couldn't quite get my head around it. There was all these different spider people in it. Why is it Spider-Man, but there's spider people in it? So I remember being intrigued by it, and there's a few spider people for Spider-Man fans in the house. And so Neddy, who's 6, he loves Spider-Man. And I think... so anyway, I hadn't seen it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And, it's spectacular looking, really is. And very modern. Yeah, and I mean, for me, I don't think John Wayne was the hero in Red River. I think it was Montgomery Clift's character. And in this one, I would say, well, obviously, Miles Morales is the sort of the hero, but he is the sort of Montgomery Clift. And the John Wayne character is basically the old Spider-Man, Jake Johnson's Spider-Man, who gets killed early on. And then they sort of reanimate him by going into a different dimension and finding him, where he's a sort of washed-up Spider-Man, basically.
Yeah, that is very funny. But do you not think, because there's that bit where they're doing the eulogy, I think his wife is talking to camera about how amazing he was, and I did wonder that, but then she says out to the hordes in New York who are gathered, he was an amazing man, he made everyone believe that they could be I can't remember what she says, but it's something along the lines of he empowers everyone to believe in themselves.
Yeah,
and I didn't get that from John Wayne at all.
No, he wasn't. Well, he wasn't. Yeah, well, that's true. But he's like the old guy basically, but the old guy in this one, he's definitely seen better times in the parallel universe version of him, where he's sort of broken up with his wife and he's sort of put on weight and he's not the sort of flawless hero that you expect Spider-Man to be. He's definitely got feet of clay, and it's really interesting that in this one the new hero is like this young sort of Latino African American guy, replacing the sort of old white guy, basically, who's sort of washed up. Which and also he's got a team of people with him, whereas the other Spider-Man was just him on his own. He didn't really have a sort of a team in the same way. At least I don't think so. And yeah, it's really interesting from that perspective. And yeah, he's great. I like the all those things you were saying about his sort of his family background not being a broken family at all. And I guess he is a sort of recognizable teenager. He's got these sort of self doubts, which makes him a great and easily to identify with type thing. I think it was really good. I didn't realize there's a second one in it, and they're making a third. It's part of a trilogy.
I think the third one's not due to come out for another couple of years yet.
No, so
I kind of wish they hadn't, though, because I always hate it when you get something that's just quite like really brilliant like this. You kind of think, just leave it at that. Just let that hang.
Did you
watch I've seen the second one, and it is enjoyable, but it does go on.
Right.
And on and on and on and on and on. It feels like it's 5 hours long. And then at the end, it just comes up with this, nothing's resolved, and it comes out with a to be continued. And so you're sort of like feeling like,
just but this one's a great film.
This is a really great film, and and I love the way, because I remember going into it very skeptical. I think we went to the cinema to see it just because my kids wanted to go see it, and we were sort of like, oh, let's go and see it in the cinema. But I was very skeptical because I usually don't enjoy these animated cartoon films of the comics. I prefer the live action ones. But I was just totally blown away by this. I love the way that they brought in all the alternate Spider-Mans because these were all real comics, like the Spider-Man Noir and the...
Were they?
Yeah, and the pig, the Peter Porker, and the little Japanese girl and the robot. These were all actual real comics, and this film just found a really clever way to kind of bring it all in together and do all these alternate Spider-Mans in one film. And I love the visual style, the way that it changes and zaps in, and the backgrounds are kind of moving around and the different art styles, and I think it's absolutely a brilliant film. It's just absolutely amazing.
It's clearly about a multiverse, right? So we're supposed to believe that this portal has sort of half opened up to other worlds and with parallel universes, but it's so rooted in New York. Like the visually, the landscape, in the same way that John Wayne was wandering through the cattle trails. This is New York, and it's absolutely New York, and it's very clever. Like the city that it creates on every level is so immersive, which I thought was brilliant. So yeah, in a way, for me, it's modern America.
And I think this was a film at the time that it came out too. It was, for an animated film, like sort of a mainstream, big, sort of Hollywood studio animated film. It was very sort of original, very striking in the visuals and in the way it was, the way it looks and the way it feels and the energy that it has. Like this is so different than what you get from when you see one of these big Pixar or Disney animated films. It just has a completely original, sort of really exciting vibe to it, and it is just visually stunning to look at. Just like there's some gobsmacking imagery, and it's just really beautiful to look at. You could even almost just turn the sound off and just watch the visuals, and it would be amazing.
It got an Oscar, didn't it?
Sorry?
It got an Oscar, didn't it? I feel like I should have
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't usually kind of pay much attention to that kind of stuff nowadays, but
best animated feature. The Golden Globe, sorry.
Golden Globes, okay. Yeah. Yeah,
well
but it is
deserved.
quite stunning. And but to go back too into that, because the difference between these two protagonists, if you will,
Mm,
John Wayne, total self confidence. And there's this thing too in American films, and you see it a lot too in kind of military sort
mm,
of films, like films about soldiers and things like that. There's always this, or like even like someone like Jason Bourne,
mm,
that character, where their abilities or another one too that just springs into my mind is things like the Steven Seagal films, before he went all sort of big and sort of fell off the radar. But when he was doing his big Warner Brothers films, that idea of the hero as someone who's totally infallible
mm,
and just really physically capable. He can sort of better anyone.
mm,
He's got more stamina, more strength, more ability. He's better than everyone else. And that's why he rises to the top and becomes the hero, because nobody can beat him. And it's just that sheer force of, you know, uh, of his ability. Whereas with Spider-Man, it's kind of him having all this ability and all these great powers and things, but not having that inner confidence to be able to, in order to try and find in himself that ability to excel and be the best that he can be
Well, for
with these
me,
things that he's found himself with.
the hero of Spider-Man is something that anyone can be. Like you wake up
Yes.
one morning by pure fluke, the spider bites you, and that's it. You're
Yeah.
the hero,
Yeah.
um, and you lean into that, and you develop the skills. But and they you have to develop them. They don't just come on you. You have to learn how to spread your spider
That's right.
nonsense.
He's a bit rubbish at first, isn't he?
Yeah,
And he has to rise to it. And I
I
guess
love that.
symbolically too, that does that, kind of gives that message to
Mm,
anyone that
you
if
can
you
do it.
persevere and if you try hard and if you get a little support from the people around you, you can
Yeah,
do it. You
be
can
a
achieve
hero.
things.
I absolutely love that bit where he goes up to he runs around the staircase, gets to the top of the
Yeah, and
edge
then,
jump, and it's too high. Then runs back down again,
yeah,
and then looks around and finds a shorter building and
yeah,
starts there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brilliant moment. There's lots of
Brilliant.
really lovely little bits in there, like really good laugh out loud,
Yeah,
funny moments in it.
that's
And
really it.
especially for someone like me who's more maybe familiar than you guys are with the spider
Mm,
lore and stuff, having grown up reading all the comics and
yeah.
knowing
Mm.
all the kind of the little sort of nerd Easter eggs all through the film and stuff. So on that level too, it's just really
It didn't disappoint.
joyously entertaining, just the way that they work that stuff in, but in a very clever way.
So, isn't there a bit at the beginning? So my son was quite excited because there's a bit where I think Mars goes to buy an outfit from a corner shop, and the guy who serves him in the corner shop, he's famous, isn't he? Didn't he
Well,
run?
that's
That's
Stan
Ramsey.
Lee.
Stan
Yeah,
Lee. There we
this was
go.
one of, I think this film came out just after he passed away.
Wow.
And that was kind of like, I don't know if it was formally his last cameo,
Mhm.
but I think it's just so fitting that this film was his last film, because I just think it so encapsulates, as I said, this whole Spider-Man, the essence of the character, and
Mhm.
and that little moment with Stan Lee is just lovely. And they have a little quote at the end too about just from him saying, that a hero can be anyone, because the
Mm.
mask, behind the mask, it could be anyone. It could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be a black person, it could be a
Be a,
Chinese person, it could be
could
a,
be a pig.
it could be anybody who
Could be
and I
Nicolas
think
Cage.
that's one of the fundamental appeals of Spider-Man, is that really, a kid can read a Spider-Man comic and he can envisage himself or herself in that costume and being that character and can identify on that level. So
So it's interesting, isn't it, when you think about modern America, like which hero does modern America need? Like,
well, I was thinking about that because in 1948, when John Wayne was at his height and all these films came out, a lot of the kind of politicians and sort of senior leadership, and I use the term leadership in quotes for people who aren't looking at the video version, but these people, they're all quite a bit older, a lot of them, aren't they? The kind of the John Boltons and the Donald Trumps and all these kind of people they would have sort of grown up at this time and would have been fed on these kind of films like Red River and John Wayne, that kind of image of right and wrong, and this is what America's all about, and this is, and those, so they maybe have those kind of concepts instilled in them, right, generationally, because we all know, like, obviously we're all being sort of propagandized on one level or another constantly, all day, all the time, from the news that we see and the magazines that we read and the films that we watch and the TV shows that we watch. We're constantly being fed ideas and being sort of conditioned to see things in a certain way. And films are a part of that. And I think you're quite right when you look at something like Spider-Man, because it's very modern and it has a completely different and perhaps more positive energy.
It's a bit more hopeful.
It's a bit more hopeful, and you're right that it creates an idea of a hero that's a little bit more in tune with, something that we can all identify with and something that we can all aspire to.
Everyone can, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So when we look at the differences, I mean, between 1948's version of a film protagonist and when did this come out? 2018. So exactly, literally 70 years later, we can see a shift in the ideas about what a hero is.
That's a relief.
I have to say I disagree, because I
Oh,
don't think John Wayne is the hero. He's just not. He's not meant to be the hero. He's like this flawed sort of tyrant guy. I don't think he's meant to be a hero. The sort of the hero, as such as he is in the film, is the Montgomery Clift character, and he's much more like Spider-Man in a way. He's like a young guy, sort of, well, in a sense, sort of, kicking against these sort of unpleasant people, older people, and like some Kingpin. In a sense, you could say that John Wayne character is much more like Kingpin. I just don't see that John Wayne is the hero in that film. It's not meant to be a hero. In fact, if you read the reviews, they don't say, "Oh yeah, he's like this hero." I don't.
Well, you are correct. It would be more correct just to call him the protagonist.
He's a protagonist.
Yeah. And obviously, but I think the film does subvert the idea of the hero, and that is what kind of makes it interesting, because of the context of when the film was released. The protagonist of the film he is a flawed person, and the character does go through that arc of, he's presented at the beginning as a hero or as someone on a noble mission of filling the world with beef, bringing beef to the people, and getting those cows across the prairies, and so he is the hero in that sense. But you're absolutely right. I think it was absolutely Howard Hawks' intention was to then subvert that, to say this is a flawed man who allows his single-minded ambition and his drive to succeed turns him into a tyrant. And that is what the journey of the film is. And you're absolutely right. I think we said even right from the beginning that Montgomery Clift does emerge as the real hero of the piece,
Yeah.
because he's the young buck who stands up to authority and says, no, actually, you're looking at this all wrong, and this is,
Yeah.
we got to put this right.
But it's like you said, the main protagonist, as awful as he was John Wayne, so he couldn't get shot. Like he had to, there was no real comeuppance, was there? Like,
not really. Well, this is the interesting thing about it, because the film, to us, in a sense, restores him back to his place at the head of the table, doesn't it? So,
exactly.
in a sense, that's why I say that the ending is a bit ambiguous, because to me, you want to walk away from this thinking that this character has emerged, somehow changed, and he's grown as a person and recognized that where he had gone wrong.
Yeah.
But I think the ending is a bit ambiguous about whether he really has.
I'm sure he went to bed that night thinking, another great day, proving that I'm right about everything. Whereas you want him plugging a gap in the time-space continuum like Kingpin.
Well, if you wanted to really look at it, if anything, Montgomery Clift, who was the young buck who stood up to authority, in the end, he just takes his place at the table as well, doesn't he? So he kind of stood up to John Wayne, but in the end, after they have a little fisticuffs and smack each other around a bit, they sit down together and say, all right, partners, we're partners now.
Yeah.
It's almost like Montgomery Clift had to assert his authority and his, in order for him to kind of take his place with the big boys.
It's all a bit toxic masculinity, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think this is not a liberal-minded film, really, in a lot of ways. But
apparently it comes from a story that was published in the newspaper or Saturday Evening Post magazine. I'm not sure. And the Montgomery Clift shoots Dunson dead. So they sort of, and you could sort of see that is like an alternate ending in your head, I would say.
Yeah, and that would have been a more logical ending. And that's where you kind of feel like it's going, because there's all this fear about, oh, Dunstan's coming, he's coming, we're going to have to face off, and there's going to be the big showdown.
Yeah.
And you do kind of, because Montgomery Clift has emerged as a hero.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, it's a woman who sort of stops them fighting. She
stops the fight, doesn't she?
Yeah, she grabs a gun too and says, now you two stop that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Kiss and make up and stop your...
Basically what you're saying is, if only John Wayne had let that woman go along with them from the off, it would have been a very different film.
Yeah, exactly. She, with that woman at the beginning, she would have been in charge. Yeah. She would have been the boss. There's no doubt about it. She'd be like, now, Tom, you stop pushing those men around and get back to work.
Exactly.
And if, Tom, I'm strong and I'm telling you, don't do it no more. They'd be like, kind of like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
Actually, before, one more thing. Just,
sure. You can say 10 more things if you want. There's no rules here.
Someone's got to go to bed eventually. That point we were saying during the break, it did blow me away. It was a 1948 film, and yet no CGI, no special effects, and I believe, like, there was that guy who got trampled by the cattle train, and like, whoever had that camera, it must have been a huge, great big camera in 1948, with all those cows walking over them. It was amazing. There was none of that was, all of it was staged, but no special effect. I thought it was amazing. So actually, for its day, I'm pretty sure that must have been really well filmed, in the same way that for its day, Spider-Man is an incredible feat of...
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well,
so there you go. Now you can go to bed.
Well, I'm gonna ask a couple of questions, though. I'm gonna send it over to Jonathan first and give Claire time to think about it. But let's imagine, if we will, for a moment, that there were all these alternate parallel universes.
Yeah.
What would Jonathan Pritchard Barrett, the ecstatic gaucho, what would he look like in an alternate universe. Kingpin's just opened up this rift, and another Jonathan pops up and lands in your bedroom. What's he like?
Whoever the heck. I'm not sure if he would look much different, but I'm sure he'd be more effective.
At what? At what?
Well, everything, basically.
Well, Jonathan, I think you're more effective than you realize. You know,
Like,
take a leaf from Miles Morales. I think you've got more in you than you maybe realize.
maybe that's it. I'm a Miles Morales at the beginning of the story, and that's what makes him such a great character, or Spider-Man at the beginning. Yeah.
What about you, Claire? What does
no.
alternate universe Clare Clark look like? Or not look like, but or is just like, as I should say, really.
I think I don't. Oh God, how awful is this? I'm oh, she'd have 100 spaniels, and she would.
You've got a
she'd
spaniel,
be-
have you?
Yeah, just one's not enough. I'd be covered in spaniels, and what else? I don't know. I think I'd just be really good at something. I don't know what it would be,
Yes,
but it
I
would
think
be.
that's it.
I'd have a special skill. Yeah, that would be quite good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Playing the lute or something.
Yeah, something utterly left field. I would just happen to have. Oh, just happen to have it here, actually, Jonathan. I might just.
Well, that's a nice idea. I like that because, if there's some alternate universe David Seeley out there who's stuck with his piano and is actually like an accomplished musician
Oh
now.
gosh, you're like Groundhog Day. I love that bit. The idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it usefully. Learn to play piano. Yeah, there you go.
Well, on that note, I think with this is amazing. I mean, are we the first film podcast who has matched a 1940s John Wayne Western with a Spider-Man animated film? I'm not sure. I think we might have broke some new ground here, but I mean, I wouldn't know. I haven't researched that at all. So,
yeah, just count yourselves lucky you weren't linking it with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, I think that if next time you come on, if you say you want to talk about Robin Hood, we might have to have words. Although maybe one time we could do a Robin Hood show and talk about different Robin Hood films. That would actually be kind of interesting.
Yeah, there you go. Alan Rickman, just a complete joy. I think we should
I love Alan Rickman. He was great. He was terrific.
Fan.
Well, Claire, thanks for sitting down with us and having this chat, and for watching Red River, because I'm sure it's probably not something you would have chose on your own. So I appreciate you digging in there and watching it. And would you say to people who maybe would have that same, would you say to them, no, actually, I think it's worth checking out?
Yeah, I think it's totally worth checking out. And do you know what? If I've learned nothing else, it's that it's okay to watch it and criticize it, because there's a tendency, isn't there, when you look at an old film like that, you have to treat it with reverence. That it's okay to watch it and think, actually, I don't like the characters. I don't like how it's been filmed. I would like it shot slightly differently. It's nice.
That's totally fair to do. Yeah, these aren't precious objects. They're cultural artifacts, and it's absolutely correct because we do it all the time. We sit down and talk about films.
Right.
In a sense, I mean, you're almost obliged to try to find fault with things that are held in such high regard that, of course, you can criticize them, and of course you can. But I think, as long as you're doing it in a constructive way, and you're, and it's all about context with these things, isn't it? Because if you're going to watch a 1948 film, you have to consider about the time and the place and the circumstances of which, I find it fascinating when I hear people criticize like a 1960s science fiction movie for having bad special effects, and you're just sort of like, well, in 1965 that was cutting edge, that was state of the art, that's what you got, and you have to look at it from that perspective, and you have to appreciate it from the time and the place that it came from, rather than hold it to 2025 standards or whatever. So that's the only thing I would say. So, Jonathan, any last thoughts that you want to wrap up about either of the films, really? Because we've kind of bodged them all together a bit more than maybe perhaps we do usually.
The Spider-Verse did actually win the Academy Award for the best animation.
Good.
Best animated
But
film.
deservedly so, too.
Yeah, I think so.
Terrific.
And yeah, I really enjoyed Red River Mutiny on the Chisholm Trail. It might be called. And and now I want to see some more of those Montgomery Clift films because he's
me too.
He was great. He's terrific. I definitely go and seek out more of his films because he was a great actor. Great actor, actually.
Definitely.
And as Claire will say too, he's a bit of eye candy for the for folks as well. In his youth, he was a good looking guy with big blue eyes, and
Well,
so
give me a film to watch in colour then.
well, he's in color ones, Claire. Don't you worry. But anyway, well, and thank you, Claire, because I think it's fair to say that Jonathan and I might never have covered a Marvel film if you hadn't have brought it up. I think it probably would have been low on our sort of list of things to talk about. But I'm really glad we did because I love this one. I think it's a brilliant film, and I think we brought out some interesting sort of themes and discussion points around them to kind of tie these two very different films together. So I hope people out there listening enjoyed the conversation. And Claire, I do hope you will come back again and sit down with us and do this again because it's a lot of fun. And it's great too because you aren't like a film nerd like us. I actually really enjoy when we have conversations with people who aren't, so because it brings out a different, some interesting things as well in the conversation that really make it fun for me. And that's kind of what Film Swap's kind of meant to be all about, really. It's about different types of people from different backgrounds and different sort of experiences sitting down and sharing films that they think are interesting and that they recommend to people to check out. So so, folks, I will just briefly say that if you want to explore these films for yourself, I think it's fair to say Spider-Man is probably not hard to come by. You could probably just turn around and trip over him. So go out and find Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse if you're one of the 6 to 10 people in the world who haven't seen it yet. Definitely, by all means, go and check it out. And Red River is also pretty widely available. I would recommend the Criterion edition because it's actually got the 2 different versions of the film. If you're going to go and buy a set, that one's really good. Plus, it's got a copy of the book that the film is based on as well, so that you can actually read the original source material. So it's a nice little set, nice little package worth getting. And also, if you just want to watch it on streaming, just go to our Letterboxd page, and I will update it on the day that the episode goes out with our little capsule reviews of the 2 films. And it will tell you on Letterboxd where you can access the films in your territory, whatever country you're in, so you can look and see where you can watch the films. And we urge you to do that. I think definitely in Spider-Man's case, I'm going to put it on our essential films list because would you agree, Jonathan, that I think of the 2 films here, I think it is just a really great film.
It is a really good film. It is.
And I think it will go on our essential films list.
Definitely.
But Red River, I don't know. Do you think we should put that on the essential films list or not?
I'm sure it's definitely a great film, but whether it's, I don't know. Let's contemplate that.
We'll contemplate that, and we have a couple of days to think about that. But anyway, thanks again, Claire, for joining us, and listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. And we'll be back very, very soon. I know over the summer we tend to have bigger gaps between episodes, but we will be back very, very soon with another episode and a really interesting guest and another really interesting theme, which I think you'll enjoy a lot. So by all means, come and find us. Jonathan, in the meantime, what past episode would you recommend to people for them to check out?
Maybe the one with the mind-blowing films with the Saragossa manuscript and...
Oh, yes. It's called Mind-Bending Masterpieces, and it is definitely a good episode and a couple of really good films we talked about there. Claire, I know you're a regular listener, of course, because you hang off every word that we say. So is there any particular previous episode that you'd like to give a shout out to and tell people?
I want to give a shout out to the one that you had called What a Man.
What a man.
Which was
what a
another
guy.
hero. What a
What a
guy.
guy.
What a guy.
Yeah, sorry, I've got that song in my head now. So is everyone else now. Sorry about that. Yeah, because that was all about the hero as well, wasn't it? About men.
It was, yeah. It was about, examining about men and about, kind of what they're like in various situations. And you're right, it kind of does tie in a little bit with the theme. So thank you. Yeah, people, that was a really good episode. A good friend of ours, Dalta, came on and had a conversation with us there. And we talked about Werner Herzog and a really great film too called Force Majeure, which is a personal favorite of mine. Really, really brilliant black comedy, which I love very much. And I would just recommend that people check out, as the companion piece to What a Guy, is the previous episode that Claire was on with us called Girl Power, which was kind of a film examining films and how they represent females, women.
They were good. I enjoyed
We did.
But that was a terrific conversation as well. So, folks, while you're hankering for another taste of the swap, I was thinking like we want to start calling it giving it a bit more of a jazzy kind of catchphrase.
Right.
So I thought we'd start calling it the swap.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Love it.
No, they're not digging it. But anyway, that's okay. But anyway, in the meantime, folks, go and check out some of our back catalog because we've done quite a fair few episodes now, and you can go back and check out some of our previous discussions and find some really cool films to watch. And we'll be back very soon. So till then, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Brilliant. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Film Swap podcast. If you like this podcast, please consider giving the show a rating or leaving a review. This helps other listeners find the show. Binge-worthy and better with time, our past episodes are packed with deep dives, hot takes and fascinating themes. Whether you're a long-time listener or just jumping in, there's a topic and a classic film to suit any taste. Explore the Film Swap back catalogue today. Learn more at filmswap.uk.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrill.
Oh, the things these nerdy middle-aged men get up to.